I will tell you how to configure DHCP on the router and also DHCP on the multi-layer switch. So I've already set up my network. I set up two networks. The first network is DHCP on the router and the second network is DHCP on the multi-layer switch. Also, I'm going to show you a special trick after configuring DHCP on how to make your layer 3 switch to have a no switch port. That means to add an IP address without VLANs. I'm going to also show you that in this video. So these IP addresses here I put here will also be the same thing for this one and this one. This one will also have a different IP address since it doesn't have a switch port. But our main focus on this video is DHCP. So I'm going to configure this part first before configuring this part. It's almost the same thing, just two codes, just two lines of code. It's almost the same thing, just two configuration differ from router and multi-layer switch. So first things first, come to our switch, create your VLAN here, VLAN 10 IT. As you can see, VLAN 10 name IT. Then enter the VLAN, interface VLAN 10, sorry, add an IP address. After adding, after adding an IP address, add IB default gateway. Okay. Now configure trunk ports. This will be a trunk port, FA01. Then these two here will be access ports. Now you can go to your, okay, I'm going to show you this in the CLI mode, and in this switch I'm going to show it in the config mode. So firstly, interface FA01, switch port mode, trunk. What I did was trunk, if in case you didn't understand. You exit, then make these two, which will be 2 and 3, interface range FA02 to 3, switch port mode, access, switch port access VLAN 10. Do right, and you are done. Then do the same thing you configured here for this. CLI enable config T, name, you first create your VLAN 20, name it, let's just say HR, exit, do interface VLAN 20, IP address 192.168.20.1 .2 255.255.255.0, then IP default gateway 192.168.20.1. Do right, exit. Okay, no need for exiting. Then interface, okay, let's do it in the config mode. So remember this is FA01, so FA01, switch it to trunk. If you switch it to trunk, it will click all these. Then for FA02 is already in access, we just make it access VLAN 20. Do the same for here, access VLAN 20, and like that you are done. Then turn on your multi-layer switch. I'm also going to turn this part on. I'm using a 3650 switch. Just go to your switch here, your network devices, switches, and bring your 3650 switch. Okay, the multi-layer switch is turned on. Now create your VLANs. We are going to create it the same way we create other ones. 10 IT, 20 HR. Then configure this port here, this port here, and this port here to be trunk port. In a normal way, it's already been configured, because apart from this one should not be, but if you turn it to trunk, it's turned on. This is not in trunk port because it's not connected to the switches, but this 3650 switch Once the layer 2 switch that is connected to it is in trunk port, it automatically changes to trunk port. If you shake this one here, which is connected to this one, is in trunk port. So yeah, this is already in trunk and this is already in trunk. This is only what we need, and we are done with configuration of multi-layer switch. Then we come to our router. First things first, we turn on this interface. The 00, we turn it on. Then for our other configuration, we go to our CLI, exit, then we enter interface G00. We enter a sub interface for the VLANs. So for VLAN 10, we enter .10, then encapsulation.iq, you write the VLAN number, which is 10, then you now add your IP address, which is the default gateway address. Do right. We do the same thing for VLAN 20, then add IP address, and you are done. Next thing you are going to do is to enable DHCP and configure DHCP. So first things first, you do service DHCP. You have enabled DHCP. So now we do IP DHCP pool. You say the pool name. So our pool name will be first, the first pool name will be VLAN 10, which is IT. Then you say network. Then our net, so this is the network address. So it's 192.168.10.0, 255.255.255.0. This is the network address. Then we set our default gateway, or in DHCP we call it default router, 192.168.10.1. We set our DNS server. I'm just going to set it 8.8.8.8 since we don't have any DNS server available here. So next we are going to do now, we didn't set our domain name. We can set the domain name if you want actually. Domain name, I'll just write it Chubby Tech. This is not really necessary, but if you want to set it, you can set it. I set it as shubi.tech. The next thing I'm going to set is excluded addresses. So we do it like this: IPDHCP excluded excluded address. So we are going to exclude 192.168.10.1 to 192.168.10.5. So this DHCP server will start giving addresses from 10.6. So like that, we are done with configuration. Then we do the same thing, we do the same thing for VLAN 20, which is HR. So HR, okay, domain name should be the same thing. Network should be .20. Default router should be 20. Yes. DNS server should be the same thing. Then that is it. Okay. Excluded addresses should be 20, 20. Do right. Exit. So we are done with configuration of DHCP. So we can now go to our PCs to check DHCP configuration. And it's successful, as you can see, and it's successful. So this is it for DHCP configuration on the router. We are going to do DHCP configuration on the multi-layer switch. So leave this part first. Let's finish our work, which is DHCP. So we're going to do the same thing we did here to here. You're going to configure VLANs here and configure VLANs here the same way. So I'm going to do it very fast. I'm going to fast forward this. So I'm done with configuring the switches, the trunk port and also the IP address. Remember, I'm using the same IP address I used here. Let me put them here. I'm using the same IP address and I'm also using the same VLAN number and the same VLAN name for this configuration. So now we are going to come here. So first things first, remember we create the same VLANs and also these two must be trunk ports. So config gig 2 is strong, gig 3 is strong. Don't go to gig 1 yet. We go to VLAN database and we create our VLAN 10 IT 20 PGR. We create them. So the first things first now is we make this router, this layer 3 switch to enable, we enable routing in the layer 3 switch. So what we are going to do is IP routing, and like that you have enabled routing. So next thing we do service DHCP, and once we have enabled service DHCP, we can now configure DHCP as we configured it here. So IP DHCP pool IT network 192.168.10.0 255.255.255.0 default router 192.168.10.1. Okay, you don't really need to set DNS. So after this I'm just going to put IP excluded addresses to make everything fast. Okay, do right. You do the same thing for PageR. You don't need to also need to set the domain name. Those really aren't necessary. I think the most necessary thing we need is this. Okay, I set it as 2 and okay. So yes, then the next thing I'm going to do now in this is to set the default gateway. Remember, this will not be the default gateway again. This will be the default gateway. You can also make this to be the default gateway, but let's make the multi-layer switch the default gateway and segment it away from the router. So enter interface VLAN 10 IP address 192.168.10.1 255.255.255.0 exit. Do the same thing for VLAN 20 and you are done. If you now set your DHCP, it will be set desktop IP configuration DHCP and DHCP is successful. Desktop DHCP and DHCP is successful. Do the same thing for here. DHCP is successful. So the bonus tip I'm going to give you is how to make this a no switch port. So come to your multi-layer switch, go to gig 101, which is what is connected to here, and make it no switch port like this and do right. And like that, it has no switch port. That if you go to config and go to gig 101, it's you can add an IP address like this 30.1 like this. Then if you go to your router and go to gig 00, turn on your router and add the same IP address 30.2, it will set and now your router is up and active. Your multi-layer switch can connect to your router, but your switches here cannot connect to your multi-layer switch. What is the reason? If you know the reason, you can tell me in the comment section. I'll also answer that in the comment section. But first, think about it. Okay, and like that, we are done with our video. In our next video in this channel, we talk about the reason why your switches here and your PCs here cannot connect to the router.